Hello there, I'm William, and welcome back to the C.I.P Cubing channel. In this video tutorial, I'll be showing you how to solve a Rubik's Cube. Today I have here my current favorite cube, the GAN 11M Pro. And today I'll be going through the most basic method of solving a Rubik's Cube with you. This method is actually even the promoted method that the Rubik's Cube, like the official Rubik's Cube company, uses. So let's get into it. Before we get started, I need to get you up to speed on some of the cubing lingo that will be used during this tutorial. These phrases are essential to learn if you plan on solving your cube or becoming a speed cuber. You may be wondering yourself, what's a speed cuber? Well, let's start with that. Speed cubing, also referred to as speed solving, is a competitive sport centered around the rapid solving of various combination puzzles. Essentially, a speed cuber is someone who solves a Rubik's Cube or any type of puzzle cube really fast. Some of the other terms that you'll need to know are center pieces, edge pieces, corner pieces, edge pairs, basic notation, which includes R, L, U, D, F, and B, algorithms, and CFOP. These are some of the basic terms and helpful names that you'll need to know in order to solve your cube. It's not necessarily necessary, but some of these are very good to know whenever you're talking about solving your cube. Now, let's get started on defining some of these. These are center pieces. They're the only piece on the cube that doesn't move position. Essentially, all the other pieces are revolving around the center pieces. You know what? This may help you to understand. Here you can see the core of the cube, and the centerpiece is attached to it. They just spin on these axles the whole time. The other pieces just kind of lock around them and move when you turn the sides. Speaking of the other pieces, this is a corner piece. As the name would suggest, these pieces are always on the corner of the cube, no matter how you scramble it. Unlike the center pieces, they do move. This is an edge piece. As, again, the name would suggest, these pieces always are found on this edge of your cube, in between the corner pieces. And yes, they do move as well. That wraps up the section on pieces. Now let's move into notation. Be sure to pay attention to this part as it can get a little tricky to remember. To begin, do you know what this means? If not, that's okay. That was an algorithm. It was made up of cubing notations. Now, while it may look daunting, it's actually really simple once you get to understand it. These are the basic cubing notations: R, L, U, D, F, and B. And then their inverted counterparts: R inverted, L inverted, U inverted, D inverted, F inverted, and B inverted. Those versions are the inverted or opposite versions of the normal cubing notations. You can tell the difference by looking at the top right corner of each notation. If you see an apostrophe, then it's inverted. If not, then it's just the normal notation. The letters stand for each side of the cube. R for right, L for left, U for up or top, D for down or bottom, F for front, and B for back. The top and bottom can be a little tricky to remember as they use top and bottom instead of up and down. When you see just a letter, like R for instance, it means to just turn that side clockwise. When you see a letter with an apostrophe, such as R inverted, it means to turn that side counterclockwise. So if you have an algorithm like this, you would just follow the moves according to what the notation says, like this. Right, up, right inverted, up inverted. There, you've just followed your first cubing algorithm made up of cubing notation. This was a very small and basic algorithm, and they get a lot longer and harder in the future, but that's just the basics. Speaking of algorithms, let's cover that next. Algorithms are patterns or sequences of cubing notations. This is what you'll use to solve your cube. Algorithms move the pieces around and orient them in a way that puts the cube back together. Remember that algorithm you did earlier? You might want to hold on to that because we're going to need it later. You may be wondering, is he finally going to talk about CFOP now? Well, to that I say, no. Don't worry, I'll show you how to do it, but I'll show you whenever we're actually solving the cube. That's also the same case for edge pairs, which I mentioned earlier but haven't gone over yet. Now, without further ado, let's start solving your cube. To begin with the CFOP method, you need to start with a cross. That's what the C stands for. Some people also start by making a flower, which is basically just the same thing as a cross, but you start on a different side than the color of the cross that you're making. In this video, I'll be doing what I usually do when solving by making the cross on the white side. When making a cross, you need to make sure that all the edge pieces that you're using are the same color as the center piece that you're making the cross with. It may be a little tricky to get this pattern the first couple times solving your cube, as you may accidentally break up the cross as you're trying to make it, if that makes any sense. Essentially, you have to be careful to preserve the other already solved edge pieces in your cross while putting the other ones in. Once your cross is made, we can start with the F in CFOP, which stands for F2L, which stands for first two layers. When solving the cross, we're basically making a frame to put the edge pairs into. To begin with F2L, put the white cross on the bottom of the cube. Then, look around the cube for a corner that contains the same color as the cross that you've made. In this case, we're using white. If your corner piece is already inside of a slot, then you need to pull it out without messing up your cross. To do this, put the corner piece to your right, like this. Then, do the algorithm that I showed you earlier. Right, up, right inverted, up inverted. You can do this as many times as you need until the corner piece is out of that slot. If the corner is in the correct spot, but not oriented correctly, like this, then just do the algorithm, right inverted, up inverted, until it matches with the rest of the cube. If your corner piece isn't in any slot, bring it over to the slot that matches and insert it so that it matches the slot. Then, find an edge piece that matches up with the centers and corner piece that you're trying to solve, like this one. See how it matches both the red and green centers and the red, green, and white corner that you're trying to solve? Then, match it up with a center piece, like this. No matter which edge piece you're trying to solve, it'll always be able to match up with a center piece in order to solve with the corner. If the edge piece matches with the center on the left side of the slot, do this algorithm. Up, right, up inverted, right inverted, up inverted, front inverted, up, front. If the edge piece matches up with the center to the right of the slot, do this algorithm. Up inverted, front inverted, up inverted, front. Up, right, up inverted, right inverted. These algorithms are basically the inverse of each other depending on which side of the slot the edge piece is on. If you look at the slot that you just filled, the edge piece and corner piece should match up with each other and the centers around it. Just repeat those steps until every single one of your slots is filled. Then, you've completed F2L. With F2L finally finished, we can begin with the O in CFOP, which stands for OLL, which stands for Orientation of Last Layer. To begin with OLL, we need to orient all the pieces on the yellow side so that they're solved, even if they're not in their correct places. To begin, look at the top of your cube. You should have one of 3 different cases, or patterns. A line across the top of the cube, through the middle, a hook, and just the center piece. If you were to look at a list of all of the different OLL algorithms, you might be thinking to yourself, there's like 100 of these things. Well, maybe not that much, but there are certainly a lot. For this tutorial, I will only be using the most basic OLL algorithms that can help you solve your cube through the power of repetition. There are different algorithms for each pattern, and these algorithms all need to be done while the cube is oriented in a certain way. Our current goal is to get a cross or combination of a cross and some other pieces to be solved on the yellow face while still preserving the F2L that we just completed. To start, let's do the algorithm for the centerpiece pattern. This is the only pattern that doesn't need to be oriented a certain way. The algorithm for this one is front, right, up, right inverted, up inverted, front inverted. This algorithm will give you one of the other two patterns that I mentioned earlier. From here, we can narrow it down to just one algorithm. If you have a line that goes down the middle of the yellow face, orient that yellow face so that the line is horizontal across the top of your cube, like this. Then just do the previous algorithm. Front, right, up, right inverted, up inverted, front. This should either give you the yellow cross or send you to the third pattern, which is the hook. If you started with the hook or are just now getting to it, it basically uses the same exact algorithm as the past two patterns, just with one slight change. We are now going to add in a new type of notation. This is a special type of notation that requires you to turn two different layers at once. This different type of notation is written as a lowercase letter rather than uppercase. For example, instead of the normal R, or R inverted, it would simply be written as lowercase r or lowercase r inverted. Now, if you have the hook pattern, orient it so that it's in the bottom right corner of the yellow face. Then do the same algorithm as before, but with this slight change. Front, right, up, right inverted, up inverted, front inverted. With this algorithm, whenever you do the front move, you should turn the middle layer with it, so you're turning two layers of your cube at the same time. If you now look at your cube, you should have the first two layers solved and a yellow cross or a variation of the yellow cross on the top of your cube. Now, it's time to start the final step of solving your cube, the P in CFOP. The P stands for PLL, which stands for permutation of last layer. This is the step where we break the rules of CFOP and solve only one layer at a time. To begin with this step, we need to solve all of the yellow corners. Now, what we're going for is a solved yellow face, so if the corners aren't in the correct positions but the yellow face is solved, that's perfectly okay. We'll be putting those corners in the correct positions later. Now, I would love to make a video where I go completely in-depth with every single PLL algorithm, but there's just so many that the video would end up being at least twice as long as this. So, in order to solve this problem, I'm just going to play some clips of me doing various cases of PLL and showing the different algorithms that you'll need to solve them. Now, some of these cases, whenever you do the algorithm, which is actually just one algorithm that you need to go through any of the cases, some of them will either completely solve the yellow side, or will send you to a different case, and you'll slowly progress through until you solve the yellow side. Now that all of the corners are properly oriented, we need to get them into the correct positions. This will leave just the edge pieces to be oriented in order to finish the cube. This next algorithm that we do is my favorite algorithm to use when solving the cube. To start, look at your cube and see if 2 of the corners are already solved. There are only 2 different cases for this part. Either 2 of your corners are solved, or none of your corners are solved. Let's start with no corners, as it leads to the second case that does have 2 corners solved. If you have no corners solved, then do this. Right, up, right inverted, up inverted, right inverted, front, right, right, up inverted, right inverted, up inverted, right, up, right inverted, front inverted. This is the longest algorithm you'll have to do if you're just doing the basic CFOP algorithms shown in this video. Once you do this algorithm correctly, you should have 2 of your corner pieces now solved. Next, orient those solved corners so that they're on the side of the cube that they match up with, and then put that side to the left of your cube, like this. Now, from here, whether you just solve your 2 corners or you already had your 2 corners solved, just do the algorithm again that we just did with the corners on the left side of the cube. Once you do that, all the corners on your cube should be solved. So now we get to move on to the final step of PLL, where we orient the edge pieces. Now, with everything else completed, it's time to start on the final step of solving your cube. If you look at your cube, you'll notice that only the yellow edge pieces need to be oriented correctly now. In fact, one of your edge pieces may already be solved. If that's the case, put the solved edge piece to the back of your cube. If not, that's okay. If you have no edge pieces solved, don't worry, I'll get back to you in a minute. For the people that already have one edge piece solved, begin by looking at your cube and orienting it accordingly so that that solved edge piece is in the back of the cube. Next, look at your cube and figure out which direction the edge pieces need to go, as this will determine which algorithm you need to use in order to solve it. If your cube looks like this and your pieces need to go clockwise, do this algorithm. Front, front, up, left, right inverted, front, front, left inverted, right, up, front, front. If you do that correctly, your cube should be solved. If your edge pieces look like this and need to go counterclockwise, just do that algorithm, but do it twice in a row. Front, front, up, left, right inverted, front, front, left inverted, right, up. And then, just do it again. And just like that, your cube should be solved. Now, if you had no edge pieces solved, do that algorithm once, and from there, orient your cube in the correct manner and do the algorithm for which case you now have. In this case, mine need to go clockwise. So, just do the algorithm once. If you've made it this far in the video, then that means that you've solved your cube. Congratulations! It wasn't that hard, was it? If your cube isn't solved and you got mixed up along the way, feel free to rewind the video or find an alternative tutorial. I suggest the tutorials on the official Rubik's Cube channel, as, well, they kind of know what they're talking about. With that, I would like to thank you so much for watching this video, and I invite you to watch some of my other videos on my channel. Be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and feel free to comment any questions or concerns you have. Again, I'd like to thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.